You don't have your own private pension plan?
No, we do that too.
Congress.
Yeah, we have a pension plan
You're
and
paying,
Social
you're
Security.
paying into Social Security?
Pardon?
You're paying into Social Security?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm sure of that.
yeah, I'm real sure of it.
Sees it on his check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're paying into.
But to your point, the Congress didn't used to pay into it.
Well, maybe that's.
But under, I'm not sure when it happened.
Sure.
But I was in the Congress, as you may or may not know, back in the 70s. And then I spent the last 32 years of my life in private business, building a sawmill, pallet factory. I drilled for oil in the Persian Gulf, built a trade center.
You could have just gone to North Dakota.
I know, what the hell was I thinking? Because I lost everything I put into the Persian Gulf.
Oh, thank you for your answer. I really didn't think that you were covered by Social Security, the Senate
Yeah.
or the House.
But you know, your point is well taken, and there are a number of other things that people don't realize. One is, I have to go onto the market exchange to buy my insurance like everybody else does. And that policy that I have now is nowhere as good as the one I used to have when we had the government program. Now I pay more and get less. And then secondly, something that everybody really should know. I don't know if you thought about this, but the president, the vice president, the cabinet, Supreme Court, the admirals, the generals, the members of Congress also have socialized medicine, okay? And I've never heard a single one of them complain about it. You know, they go on the floor of the House and they say, well, when I go to the doctor, I want to know the doctor's working for me, not for the government. And then they sneak around back through the Capitol over to the little subsidized government clinic that's there to take care of you. I always found it interesting. They're pretty sure it wouldn't be good for the people, but I've never heard any of them complain about it. So it's something to think about.
No, that care that they sneak around for, that's pretty good care, isn't it? I mean,
Oh, it's
they
darn,
don't-
like I say, I've never heard a single complaint.
Okay.
Not a one. Never.
it's some of the better doctors around.
Oh, they're excellent doctors.
They are doctors, right? Not like the VA.
Yeah, yeah, they're real doctors. They're real doctors.
I'm glad he just mentioned the VA. It's criminal that our government can't take care of these people who've been over, been shot at, blown up, everything else, lost limbs, so on and so forth. And we have the big case of a woman that was out east, came to Minnesota, $300,000 in moving costs according to the paper. She had a lesser job description, yet she kept her pay. They're finally trying to get rid of her. They're shipping her to New Mexico or something like that. That shouldn't be happening. Meanwhile, these veterans are not getting the care they should have
I agree
at all.
100%.
It's a horrible,
Yeah.
horrible situation. Why do we get, letters asking for funds to help these veterans? And I'm glad to give to some of them. Well, after the wounded one, no, I'm not sure about that one anymore. What is their government doing? What is wrong with our system that they can't take care of these veterans? Whether it's World War II, Korea, whatever it is, and of course, tragically, the recent ones. What
I've
is
had a
going
number of
on?
hearings, and well, good news and bad news. Many of the veterans are quite pleased with the care that they've gotten. So, in fact, I'd probably say most of them. But what's most disturbing is that not all of them are getting the care.
They all got shot at.
Huh?
They all got shot.
Oh my God, I ran into a guy
Wow.
who's throwing his medals, in the Lake Superior because he lost arms and legs and they can't qualify him for disability. Like really? Would you just look at the poor fella for crying out loud? He was so upset. And then to, have people from Wadena, drive down to the VA in Minneapolis to get a blood test? Really?
And apparently our Veterans Department in Minnesota, the Minnesota Department for Veterans is one that is not one of the better ones in this country. What can Congress do about cleaning up the mess? It is absolutely, totally unfair to these people who we've sent over there. Whether it was a good reason or not, but they got shot at, so on and so forth.
Well, we're trying to get this Veterans Choice thing off the ground. We've passed it, but there's resistance to it, everywhere. And so it's off to a rough start, but I think it's a good idea. If the VA can't give you an appointment, and/or it's cheaper for you to go get your blood test, I mean, we got good hospital services around here. You don't need to pay someone transportation, have to take all day to drive down to the VA in Minneapolis to get pick a blood test. So we're working on it, but it's a struggle. And something we all need to be mindful of, and that is, in politics, unlike so many things in life, where there's a final score, there's never a final score. I mean, it's kind of like a constant vigilance, a constant need to fix the problem that this woman so eloquently described that we hadn't anticipated. I remember I was in Congress back in the 70s when there was virtually no money in the Social Security Fund or in the Medicare Fund. Social Security and Medicare was based, and to a large extent it still is, on the full faith and good credit of the United States of America. And what Social Security used to do is, every couple of years they'd say, well, what are our obligations for the next 4 or 5 years? How much money do we have in the fund? And then adjust the tax accordingly to make sure that there was enough money there to pay all the benefits. Well, then the Wall Street geniuses got together and said, oh, well, we should have enough money in that fund to project, ad infinitum, forever into the future. But what's interesting about this, right now the Social Security's got $2.8 trillion in it, invested in got treasury notes. They got enough money there under worst case scenario to pay benefits for 30 years, and even after that pay 3/4 of the benefit. But guess what? That's all based on projections. We don't know for sure. I mean, if we have a really strong economy for the next 30 years, why, they may have, money rolling out the windows. If we have a bad economy, it could be worse than what we think. So you got to constantly be aware that there's never a final score. You got to constantly keep this, what our founders said, is a constant vigilance. And the government is not a foreign entity, it's us. That's who we are. That is us. But our founders said it requires a constant vigilance. The government left to its own devices can run amok too. And that's what's happened in the VA, quite frankly. And it needs fixing, and I talked with Tim Walls, who's on that committee. I talk with him almost weekly, and I bring back reports of concerns like you're expressing here. And they're working, they're trying hard to get this thing squared away, and I think we will in time. I sure hope so. I'm determined to get it fixed.
Thank you. That's got to be very
Yeah.
high priority. One
Yeah.
other thing this gentleman brought up was the CPI for older people. What are the chances of that even happening in Congress, that they would pass that so we would get an increase every year, more than likely?
I got to respond to Buddy here. You have Nolan take care of it. Good luck with that.
That was tongue in cheek.
I know. There, several universities did a study here, just here about a month or so. University of Virginia and Vanderbilt. They looked at who's effective in the Congress of the United States, and lo and behold, a kid from north central Minnesota, an old paper boy, ended up being one of the 10 most effective members of the Congress of the United States. That's yours truly, thank you. I'm just pleased to hear that. It's nice to know that a young guy in the minority can still get things done. And number 2 among all the Democrats in Congress, and number 1 in the Minnesota delegation. So there are some of us, who manage to, get some things done from time to time, and I'm grateful for that. Because if I couldn't, I wouldn't go back. I'm too old for a fool's errand. So that's one of the things we're going to work on. There's a lot of good bipartisan support for that, and you know, I think there's some possibilities there. So, you know, and I'm working on those kinds of things, you know, big and small, all the time, and I have a fair amounts of success. Apparently more than most. So, and that's what I'm working on.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll remember that.
Thank you. We'll see how I do. Now you win some and you lose some.
That's true.
You know, I got through an amendment, and, you know, this is something I probably, sometimes I'm in Washington, I've sometimes as many as 20, 25, 30 different groups come through my office from the 8th District here. And it ranges, you know, bankers, realtors, Head Start teachers, you name it. I mean, the whole farmers, laborers, the whole group. And I tell all of them, and I feel compelled to tell everybody, you just have to live with it, it's just me. And I say to people, look, you want some more money to find a cure for cancer? So do I. I got a 40-year-old daughter with stage 4 lung cancer, and she never smoked, and she has 4 children. And darn right I want to put some more money to find a cure for cancer. You need some more money for education of our children. You're darn right. You know, I went to school for $100 a quarter, for crying out loud. I worked full time, raised a family, and
That was a long time ago.
yeah, well, nowadays, you know, the average kid comes out with a $30,000 debt. And by the way, that's not $30,000 over a 20-year period. That's more like $130,000 payback. So, yeah, I want to help fix that, and you know, the roads, the bridges, and everything. But I remind people, we have to make some hard decisions about priorities. Okay, where are we going to spend our money? So, and I'm passionate about it. I've lived in the Middle East. I have I've studied Arabic. I've lived and worked with those people over there in all those countries. I spent my Sabbath Friday under Islam in the Persian Gulf fishing. Okay. All my experience has taught me we have no friends in that conflict. It's been going on for thousands of years. You get in the middle of the conflict, and guess what? You become a part of it. And I can take you through the litany. We've been on every side of that conflict. Okay? We have. Starting with the Mujahideen. Okay? We funded them. Well, they morphed into the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. We supported Saddam Hussein. We know he used chemical weapons because we got the sales receipts. Okay? And then we overthrew him. And then we put the Shia. You know, it just goes on and on and on and on. Here's the point. We spent $3 trillion alone on just the war in Iraq. For one of those trillion, we could have graduated every kid in America from vocational and college debt-free. For another $1 trillion of that, we could have provided a cost of living increase, you know, for Social Security. We could have rebuilt our roads, our bridges, our wastewater treatment. For another $1 trillion, we could have given everybody a $1 trillion tax break. Instead, back to your point, we still got an additional $2 trillion obligation taking care of the veterans, the brave men and women who stood up to serve their country, but they came back and they had lost arms, they had lost legs, they had suffered serious brain, and we have a profound moral obligation to take care of them. Now, my point is, that's just one of the wars. We got one going in Syria, you know, we got one going in Afghanistan, we got one going in Yemen, a bunch of people want us to get one going in Iran, let's get one going in Syria, let's get one going in Somalia. I have no doubt that we can send our military in anywhere in the world because they are the best anywhere in the world. And we can take charge and we can get control and we can straighten everything out. We can do that.
And at what cost?
That's the point. There are a lot of things in life you can't afford. In our business, in our personal life, and in this case, from all my, so I say, even if you think it's a good idea, think about whether or not you can afford it. You're bankrupting this country in the process. And I, from my own personal experience, don't think it's a good idea, because I've watched what's happened. It's caused more problems than it has solved. So you got to be careful sometimes with your good intentions. We need to stop rebuilding the world and start focusing on rebuilding America, and the rest of the world will like us better. I lived in the Middle East when they actually liked us. You know, they wondered about us, but they said, "Boy, you guys are creative, you're inventive, your industry." I mean, these were Bedouins coming out of the desert. And they just were amazed with us. I don't know about all your freedoms, you know, but pretty interesting, you know. Boy, you don't want to go over there now, not as an American. You know, and as William Fulbright said, you know, way back with regard to Vietnam, he wore those glasses and he looked out and he said, "So what you're saying is they don't realize we're there to help them, they just see the bombs." You know, that's what's happening. So you hear where we threw, you know, 200 cruise missiles into Syria over the weekend. Well, you know, they're $1 million a piece, by the way. There's $200 million. And you wonder why there's 470,000 people have died and 5, 6, 7 million refugees. Well, you know, everybody's got a part in that. I had an amendment with a Republican to eliminate the program for training the so-called friendly Free Syrian rebels. We spent $1.2 billion, and we got 5 guys out of the deal. So, I mean, even if you think it's a good idea, I mean, you want to train, you know, 5 guys, you know, for $1.2 billion? Of course not. There's nobody in their right mind thinks that makes sense. What they don't like to tell you is we trained, you know, a whole bunch more. But they're fighting on the other side. They're fighting against us. You know, they took our training, took our guns, took our arms, took our weapons, and then they're fighting against us. So it's a very complicated thing. Nothing is as it appears over in that Arab world. It is unbelievable. We have no friends in that conflict, and we can't afford it. I know you didn't come here to hear that, but that relates to all of the other things that we're talking about here.
Well, in the federal budget, when you up the military again, you sacrifice everything else.
Well,
Exactly.
it already takes
Yeah.
a vast majority
Yeah.
of our budget, vast majority.
So back to the initial point is, you know, yeah, I'd like to do it all, but you can't. So you got to make some decisions. What's important to you?
War. Let's have war.
Yeah,
Never-ending war. I just
War.
finished a book called
endless war.
Power, Greed, Power, and Endless War.
Yeah. Well, I'm
And
against it.
It's a jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reason you can't really get your finger on some
That's
of this
right.
stuff. And it's the same thing is true about our fear of another 9/11. There are companies coming into existence that are taking hundreds of millions of dollars. And we can't keep can't keep tabs on them.
Well, you know who warned us? A great Republican president, Dwight Eisenhower, in his farewell address.
Yeah,
He said
but
the
he was
single
a
greatest
Republican.
threat to the survival of this republic is the excessive influence of the military
Military-industrial complex.
Yes.
So this is relevant to this. Back to this. I want you to know, I'm a business guy. And I tell you, in business, I spent 32 years of my life in business. And your obligation in business is to make a profit. And you have that obligation to every one of your employees. You have that obligation to your investors. That's what you are in business for, is to hopefully do something that's socially and economically useful and responsible. But you have an obligation to make a profit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Proud to call myself a business guy, okay? Having said that, I think there are things like education that are important to this country. There are things like transportation that are important to this country, and things like Social Security and Medicare that are important to these countries, that don't lend themselves well to a profit-making enterprise. Of course, Wall Street would love to get their hands on Social Security. My God, you know, every transaction Have you seen the fees that they charge on every cotton picking transaction that comes down the line? Oh, they're nothing, they're a lot better than to get